welcome 3 people from the ISL Engineering, and I'm going to do a quick introduction to all of them. So Borg Chan is Manager of Traffic Engineering and Safety. He's responsible for traffic engineering and road safety assignments throughout BC, including traffic engineering services, road safety audits and reviews, traffic safety assessments and development applications, parking review and management, area and corridor traffic operations, bicycle pedestrian transit studies, micro simulation studies, and traffic signal optimization, coordination, and design. He is a road safety specialist with experience spanning 25 years, including network screening, traffic control survey, road safety audit, and human factor assessment. He has managed ISL's road safety review projects for the Insurance Corporation of British Columbia, the Road Improvement Program, including many in-service traffic operations and review studies since 2011. And also he has awarded the 2020 Mavis Johnson Award by ITE Greater Vancouver. Joining him is Omid Abadi. Omid has been working with ISL Engineering since 2018 as a transportation engineer. He has been involved in several road safety review studies for municipalities across British Columbia, such as North Vancouver, New Westminster, Richmond, and Coquitlam. Through a systematic approach of network screening, Omid has reviewed the historical insurance claims to determine top collision-prone locations, identify potential safety issues, and develop short and long-term mitigating measures to reduce the number of casualty collisions. He has a Master's of Science in Transportation Engineering from the University of Calgary and his Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering. And he is treasurer of the YPC committee. Jeffrey Ho, who will not be presenting, but he will be available for questions, has over 30 years of experience in the practice of road safety engineering and traffic engineering and management. He has conducted numerous network screening studies, in-service road safety reviews, and road safety audits in Canada and internationally. Jeff was a key member of the technical steering committee for the TAC Canadian Guide to In-Service Road Safety Reviews. He is one of the principal authors of the TAC Canadian Road Safety Audit Guide. He's received multiple awards from the ITE Vancouver section, the province of British Columbia, and the TAC for contributing his contributions in road safety engineering. He's also a fellow of the Institute of Transportation Engineers and is a registered professional in BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Ontario. He is also a member of the Hong Kong Institute of Engineers, and he received his bachelor and master's degree from McGill. So without further ado, welcome, and I believe that Borg is starting. And just once again, a reminder that put your questions into the Q&A area, and questions will be left to the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brenda. Just such a long bio discussion. But anyway, that's good timing now. I'm going to share my screen. So hopefully everyone can see the screen. If you can't see the screen, I don't know what I can do, but hopefully everyone can see the screen. So this topic is road safety level screening lesson learned. It's actually based on what's last 10 years. We did some different road safety level screening for different city in the BC, and then every time we do it, we find there's some challenge, and then we're going to learn it more about this. So this webinar, we will going to have as Brenda said, is myself, Omid is actually my co-worker, and Jeffrey is also safety specialist, also helping us to prepare this PowerPoint presentation, and also moving to coming on the desk Q&A. So let's start it. So what we're going to do for the presentation. So that's his presentation agenda. So what we're going to do, the presentation coming along. So we first all talking about what's road safety level screening. Some of them you'll be probably very familiar or know very well what is road safety level screening. So we just say a little bit more, and then what are the benefits, why that's important, and how it's conducted, how to be conducted, and then what are the typical outcome based on this study. And then next thing we think about, okay, we got outcome, then what's happening for next step? What can we do it? Finally, we talk about, as I said before, what's the challenge and what the lesson learned about this one, and then see how to do it better for next time. At the end, we will have the Q&A. So as I said before, is we have myself here. If you haven't seen the screen, you can see the quick photo here. So it's and then Omid, as I said before, is my topic, road safety engineer, also helping the ISL. And Jeffrey, his own company, G-Hole Engineering Consultant. So also will be a number of years in this area. So what is road safety level screening? So based on the tech guideline to the in-service road safety review, that is I think the latest version is 2004, but still vary a lot. So based on the Transportation Association of Canada guide, they say that road safety level screening is a process by which the safety performance for road level is evaluated at the macro level to identify the sites most suitable for detailed analysis. One thing we need to be very careful is that's a macro level, it's not micro level. So that means we will see that the whole area, even the whole city or whole level, to see that what's happening in this white level screening. We only do the macro level to see it, identify some sites, and then we're going to look for the more detail in the future. The output of the level screening is a list of the random sites, and that's strong candidate for study and improvement. So this is the one we're going to do outcome. We will say a little bit more, but the idea is that we have the random site for the strong candidate for future small study or to development improvement, and even the cost estimate, because that is helping the different government agents to be prioritize the work and also to doing the implementation plan or even the capital plan. Next one is the one we got the Canadian version. Now we got some US version. What to say about the road safety level screening. So in the highway safety manual, everyone familiar. The 2010 HSM. Afterwards, they do some update or the new version. I know that the new version actually is 2020, but mainly for the 2010, they call the road safety level screening, and then they say a process for rebuilding of transportation network to identify a rank site from most likely to least likely, to realize the reduction in crash frequency with implementation of the countermeasure. It's very similar to the Canadian standard or something like that. The only thing maybe different is a more specified is to realize the reduction of crash frequency and implement countermeasure. Compared with the before in Canada, they more likely ranking what happening or something like that, but didn't say the detail. But I think the idea is very similar. So what are the benefits to doing the road safety level screening? So we separate for three different things on that one. First thing, we're talking about social. So everybody knows about that. We're going to improve the safety, we improve the condition, improve the life or health wellness for the all road users. So not only the car, the driver, not passenger, or even the bike, pedestrian, or transit user, whatever the road user. Even now, there are people using the e-bike or anything is related. They can consider is roller the board or some other one. Anyway, the input they also consider input social equity through the improve the safety. So not only focus on one area, we actually focus for all area for safety. So that's also important for that the people know that for the social rights, we do this improvement is for the whole society. not only for that one particular type of the road user. Another thing is economic. So economic always important for the government agents to identify the whether they study to go ahead or doing some more improvement or some funding or that one. So I will something with second one first. Everyone will know about that one when we're doing the collision saving reduction because of some improvement. They will going to do some saving not only for the health, also saving for the money because of the damage, also is insurance cost to pay for that one. But the first one also is important because after we're doing some improvement to work, how to generate the economy, how to improve the economy, because when you're doing some new infrastructure, recommend some new infrastructure, or even some smaller thing or some other one thing, we do actually improve some of community-wide employment. So we generate more work for the people and doing some such and such. Also, we improve the traffic condition. We will going to make the travel less time to travel, less congestion. Actually, it improves the community, the employment, and also the benefit between the work. Finally, also is definitely not the least, is environmental. How to do safe environmental? That's actually we can do it because of the improve the safety. We probably improve also the traffic operation. They will reduce the greenhouse gas emission and also other chemical or any more ways of this one. The other way one, we're not always thinking about improve the traffic operation by taking out all the tree and then widen the wall, extend about 5-6 things or something like that. We can find a way to save some resources and also try to minimize the impact for the tree or grass to make it more nice in the area. So this is some benefit. And then, but how is it conduct? So first thing we need to do is establish some focus area and decide the outcome. We need to discuss it with the government agents. What exactly they want, what area they want to say. When they go into area for the whole city or some particular area, they more focus, or what type of the data they can available, and what the budget they have, something like that one. And we need to know what's happening on this one before we starting to do our work or even starting a term reference or task. Second thing is what's the project goal for this one? So it's a vision zero, that's been more for the fatal injury or different all collision, or maybe you want to see it, or VRU, that variable wall user, that's been the more specified the pedestrian and bicycle for this study. So we will need to know that what's happening or something like that, what the reference preparation we consider. Third thing, after we got all the information we want to tell you, we got the data, we need to select some performance measure. So that's mean what we performance measure, we have collision frequency, collision weight, or even severity ratio or something like that. So we need to know severity index. We need to know what actual performance measure we want to consider. Then based on this everything, we will identify selecting some different screening methods. So that we go into next step, we're going to do the screening method. And this screening method actually, Omid after this slide, he will say a little bit more detail what happening or something like that. But that's important. And this also not only the one time. So step 4 is not one time. We probably go, once we do step 4, we find that, oh, we may modify that, discuss it with government agents. We may come back to step 2 and step 3 to identify, change a little bit for performance measure, change a little bit for the goal or something like that to make it better. So at step 4, we will start to do the work once confirmed about the screening method, but we do it this way. So now we go into the methodology chart. I will leave the Omid to say about a little bit more about what actual methodology we can do it and what the outcome we have got it. Okay.
Thank you, Borg. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Hope you can hear me well. Thank you, Borg, again. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the process from project initiation to reporting. Before meeting with the client, we established a study methodology chart to outline the steps and tasks and their relationship with each other to complete the study. This flow chart is customized based on our understanding from the project and our past similar experience. And then we will present this chart to the client during the initiation meeting, and then we update with their input. This chart is very beneficial to project success as it could be used as a reference throughout the project, and it also helps ensure that we are all on the same page. Here is the sample of flow chart that we recently prepared. Don't be scared. We will zoom in and talk about each part of the flow chart one by one. So similar to other studies, the very first step is project initiation, where we meet with the client, collect data, relevant data such as insurance claims, which is specific to BC, police data, and health authority data. Then we will undertake a literature review to understand the project, the city, what has been done in the city, and their transportation plans and some goals and the important objectives for them. After project initiation, there is initial screening and secondary screening. The whole process of screening is based on TAC guide using the latest 5-year collision data. In the initial screening, we review the collision data to identify if there is any gaps or any problem or any and filter out the irrelevant data such as out of study area or parking related data. Then based on the filtered data, we do citywide collision review, characteristics review, where we identify the temporal distributions and the trends of the collisions, such as the trends for month, for the year, for day of week and hour. This citywide review will be used later in developing city.
Looks like we've had some technical difficulties with Omid. Borg, are you able to continue on his portion?
Sure, yeah.
Great, thank you.
So what's just last one Omid did say about the first stage, we also call it initial screening. So now we moved it to after we got the co-progress meeting with the city to identify some of the different things, concerned about what's the work we have doing before. Now we're doing the secondary screening or the identifying safety issue, what we say. So the secondary screening actually is after progress meeting, I pipeline some of the high risk intersections, go for next way or something like that. And then also we have the see the screen. Also we say that on the let's say the high risk corridor. So this high risk corridor can be identified at 4 or 5 based on the collision or based on the heatboard collision also going to the identifiers. But the other way around, we also have the very important is we need to identify with the city some of the intersection with the reason and pattern improvement, whether we should continue to consider as a high risk intersection, because we really want that using the money in the proper way. If the location already recently improved it, or are they going to improve it in the future, we want to continue using the historical collision data to identify whether they need to improvement. I think we need to discuss it with the carbon agents to confirm about whether it should be a high risk collision location. Another thing is possibly by some of the location is from the different jurisdiction. For example, in the BC, they have a lot more intersection with the ministry. So ministry maybe have different idea to doing improvement. So should we consider in this city, or we others between the boundary for doing this city? So should we improve that, or how can we improve that between the both government agents? Then afterwards, we select some candidate location to go to more detail. And this time, we need to some traffic volume data, because we want to see some of the data, what we call collision rate. So we compare the collision rate as one of our consideration. And then also speed data. that will affect some of the results. Afterwards, we going to select the identified location. We will do some a little bit more detailed collision analysis, just like the collision direction or what type of collision. We are more focused. We can go for that one. At the same time, we will go into some site review. The field review actually very important because we will usually have about at least 2 road safety engineers to go out the site and then checking about the peak hour or even off peak hour and see the traffic pattern and then what happened, why they happen for the collision. So that's important to come and report. And then summarize everything, we identify some specified or the common safety issue, or even the trends about what happened about the corridor or area, what the common trend on the safety. And based on this one, we have some report, we call it risk identification report, to summarize all the findings and submit it to government agent for review and identify this is the case, this is what happened or something like that. And next thing we're going to do is a improvement plan and reporting. So after we give the review meeting, we identify some area-wide or corridor-wide countermeasure. So that can be considered a whole corridor, how to improve it. One example, maybe adding the left-turn bay for the whole corridor, or a left-turn face even, or the road narrowing to make a bike lane or whatever. And also in the site-specific countermeasure. So one intersection, do we need to do some for the signage or pavement marking, or even the improvement, or even geometric improvement to go in to make it more safe in the area for this particular intersection. And then we go into that. After this one, we have the implementation plan. So a list of the what work we need to do. Sure, after the plan is submitted, we also have the review meeting. But we also can consider, okay, we got some improvement. How do you do the evaluation? How to monitor this one? So we also propose some idea, strategy to the government agents to how to make it better through along the area, along the future years. Afterwards, we got some final report, but we still want to have some review meeting. Otherwise, for some of the stakeholder, some stakeholder that's specified from the government agent, say for example, police, health department, or even some planning department, they would like to know more about or bylaw people. They will know more about what our recommendation is. It fit for the policy, our thing, or even future plan for this one. At the end, we will have to call it final road safety level screening for the city for implement for the next step. Okay, we talking
Thank
about.
You, Borg. I'm back. Sorry, my internet disconnected. I had some problems since morning. Thank you for doing my task. Okay, a little bit more on the screening decision tree, how we do the initial and the contributing factors to developing the screening decision tree. So the contributing factors, one of them is the study goals, as Borg mentioned, whether the focus is on VRU or casualty collision or all collisions. The timeline and budget are always important. If we have time and budget, we can do more detailed analysis like traffic operations or including some more safety indicators. The number of intersections that the client would like to rank is also important in terms of the data review. Data availability, we are dealing with insurance claims in BC, and we have other sources of data, so we need to see which data we should use, and based on which data we should develop this methodology and a screening tree. And also another input which is important is, as mentioned earlier, is to consider the intersections with recent or planned improvements. There are some safety performance indicators that I'm going to list here that we typically take into account. Collision frequency is number of collisions per year for that 5-year study period. Collision rate, which shows the exposure, safety exposure of the intersection, taking into account the traffic volume. Casualty percentage and severity index, which are based on fatality and injury collisions. Usually the go-to safety indicator when we are dealing with Vision Zero or when casualty collisions are important. We also take into account or conduct overrepresented analysis in some studies where, for example, we know that for signalized intersections, typically the rear end is the predominant collision type, but we gotta see based on a statistical analysis is if that rear end is overrepresented in that intersection, then we will go and identify why it happens. And also VRU collisions, number of pedestrian or cyclist involved collisions. Then we, based on these factors and indicators, we develop this screening tree. It's very detailed. I'm not going to go into the steps, but typically when we get the data, we, as mentioned earlier, we remove the irrelevant claims. Like here, it was parking related claims that we can't really do much on that one, although the client wanted to, like, because of having a lot of number of parking related issues, the client sometimes proceed with another study to identify the issues for that particular collision type. And then to identify the list of intersections, we also remove the mid-block related collision. And then we are dealing with, for example, here we are dealing with 16 or over 10,000 claims. Then we do the initial screening. We typically in the initial screening, we generate a list which has higher number of intersections. So it would provide flexibility to the client so they can determine if the locations that are listed here are appropriate or not, or if they want to take out some intersections because of recent improvements or not. And then once we identify the initial screening and preliminary list, we will go into more details, having a decision criteria, taking into account other safety indicators. Sometimes we have a scoring system where we give higher weight to some indicators. For example, if, as we mentioned earlier, if it's Vision Zero focus, we give higher rate, score or weights to casualty percentage and severity index. After we develop the list and confirm the list with the city or the client, we going to the next step, which is to identify the road safety issues or potential road safety issues for the list of intersections or corridors if needed or area wide. At least 2 road safety engineer will conduct the detailed field review based on TAC in-service guide. And we will also do detailed collision review, identifying the collision type, direction, contributing factors. Sometimes we prepare collision diagrams which visually show how the collision happened and where it happened. And if the budget and time allows, we also do traffic operation analysis to identify the operational related issues such as queuing, congestion, lack of turning bay, or insufficient length. Here you can see some of the pictures taken during the site visit. Things that we look at here are, for example, pedestrian crossing, number of pedestrians, whether the crossing is short enough and the exposure is short. The other thing is looking at the vehicle movement, for example, speeding. You can see here a wide cross section, which could be a reason for the speeding. And also we look at the traffic control, signal visibility, or whether we need to convert the existing stop to a traffic signal. So basically we categorize the issues into these 5 groups: operational, where we look at the congestion, queuing, lack of turning bays; geometric, whether there is a horizontal or vertical curve or offset for the left turns; signal, which could be visibility to the signal heads, could be operation related; vulnerable road users, crossing distance for pedestrian, the facilities that are available, and the other issues like related to pavement, whether there's a faded pavement marking, signage, whether there is insufficient or lack of signage or inappropriate signage, and also lighting, which is could be lack of lighting or insufficient lighting. Then once we identify the issues for intersections and corridors, we will go to develop improvement plan based on 4E or 5Es of road safety. The first one is engineering through improving and designing transportation systems and facilities to anticipate human error so the consequence is not death or severe injury. That means what we mostly do as traffic and road safety engineer, designing the facilities and systems through concept design and providing suggestion like related to the lane configuration, traffic control, signage, and etc. The next one is enforcement, working with local law enforcement to enhance education, awareness, and enforcement in adjusting high-risk behaviors. Sometimes when we do as part of this project scope, when we do corridor-wide analysis, we identified that speeding or red light running are more frequent along specific intersections or corridors. So then we specified that in our report that maybe we should improve the enforcement. The next one is evaluation or monitoring, which is basically reviewing the existing strategy and identify whether it works or not. Through observing behavior, doing field review, doing survey conflicts, and monitoring the programs, as well as adjusting the legislation if needed. And the last one is education or encouragement, which I think it's the most important E of the 4 or 5 E's because of the long-lasting effect that it could have. And sometimes we help this client with developing and consulting road safety programs for schools. What are the typical study outcomes? So one of the outcomes could be heat maps, where it could be an outcome of this study, or it could be used at the beginning of this study when we want to identify the hotspot location. The heat maps could be prepared for different type of collisions, for example, all collisions, casualty collisions, for pedestrian or cyclist collisions. So it could show us visually and very easy where the high risk intersections are, or the frequency of the where there is a higher frequency of a specific type of collision. And also we could identify the corridors with high risk intersections. Another typical outcome of the network screening studies are related to the citywide, area-wide, and corridor-wide improvement strategies, where we summarize all the identified issues, the issues that I talked about, the different groups or categories of issues, and the related countermeasures, which is categorized into immediate, short-term, medium-term, long-term, and it helps with the city with capital funding. Another type of outcome from the network screening study is what we call intersection safety summary sheets, where we summarize all the findings from the beginning of the study to the end. It includes existing features, the number of lanes, the speed, posted speed limit, the classification of the road, some information about collision statistics that we found through reviewing the insurance claims here in BC, and then followed by the identified operational and safety issues, those 5 categories that I briefly talked about, and then the potential improvements for that particular intersection. What are the next steps? I'm going to ask Borg to discuss about the next steps.
Thank you, Wade. So what are the next steps? So what we're doing the work, what are the next steps we're going to do? So Also, the next step is can we do detailed intersection safety study? So usually the government agents will say identify top 5, top 10, or top 20 locations. They want to do it for this year or next 2 years time to do a more detailed safety analysis. What we say data analysis, probably doing some collision diagram, identify safety issues for each collision type, and also each approach, and also development the improvement measure for each approach and each area to see what the detail in intersection study. Next one we probably doing is conceptual design and the cost estimate. Because we got it now, we got some idea what to do the improvement, but we want to see that whether their contribution is okay, and also to see any conflict with the other things such as existing utility poles or utility underground even, and also some nearby development structure already be there, so we can do the improvement. So that is also including some of site review again, and also based on this, we do some more detailed cost estimate to identify the future improvement, and also helping the implementation plan. Talking about the cost estimate, so we also doing the economic evaluation, or we call it benefit cost analysis. It's just based on the collision modification factor, and then we can determine any cost saving, collision saving, and then also to each some improvement to identify whether they are good compared with the cost, or what the economic evaluation. Because in BC, we got the ICBC, Insurance Corporation of the BC. They will sometimes provide the funding contribution for some improvement. So that's also important for the government agents know about that one. And that's the one for the, we call it, say one example, we're doing the safety review and design report. We recently submitted. You can see that we submitted this one. So for different project or different areas of development. And then also, if we know that there's some area corridor have an issue, the city may be considered in the future do some traffic operation road safety review. Also, in BC, we got the ICBC. Actually, they were funding to do some study for traffic operation road safety review to more detail for doing the whole area or whole corridor. It's not only the one area, and also do more for the capacity analysis to determine that improvement measure is it okay for the traffic operation point of view, or do we need to do more work or something like that. Finally, definitely is not the least, we also need to continue working with the partners. I say partner, maybe government agents, or maybe ICBC, as I said before, on road safety program. And then we will work with them, and then not only the government agents, also with the police or the health department to develop some safety improvement or some safety program or the framework, what they're going to do in the future. Okay, we're talking all about the road safety level screening. So what's the lesson learned and challenge? So first thing we're talking about is if you have a clear that's in the decision tree, you can see the very beginning on the top of the collision, 5 years is 36 or 40,000 or 50,000 collision. So and this incident can be very detailed what they say on that one. So we can't do all in the one time. We're spending a lot of time if we go through all the collision level. So number one, first we need to do it is how to screen it, how to identify anything irrelevant, such as parking related. Is it irrelevant inside parking lot? Okay, on-street parking, maybe we still need to consider, but in the parking lot, or even some of the windshields damage to hit and run, maybe we can't do much about this one. So we need to identify what they go into data review. So that is very important. We need to know that very beginning for what the amount, or even to say 3 years, 5 years, or even 10 years for collision data we should consider. Oh, sorry, jump a little bit. Source of collision data. Fortunately, in the BC, we also always have the Insurance Corporation of the BC. They have a whole list of the collision for 10 years, 9 years. So that's good for us, but we still need to make sure the collision data is recent or valuable. Say, for example, now is 2020 May. Sometimes we can get the 2021 data, but sometimes the data needs to start processing about a year or half a year to do it. So usually, if you're going to say, ask me to now to starting a new study, we will get the data from and ending in the December 2020 instead of the 2021, because it's make more sense, the data. And also, but so we get more data, maybe more year is better, but the other way around, more years, some of the years, like for example, 10 years ago or 8 years ago, maybe there's a lot relevant there because there's a lot of training there. Not only that intersection, maybe surrounding area, they change already. So is it that collision data is still valid? So we need to see the what happening somewhere. So it's in some of ICBC data we have in BC, we also will ask the police data. So there's been the called task data, traffic accident data, traffic accident statistic. So that will provide also police data. So we can, sometimes the data is different, sometimes it's some similar, so we need to check between each other. Another source we can do is health department or emergency room can provide some data here. But unfortunately, because last 2 years, because COVID, they will very hardly to have resources or manpower to helping on this. But in the previous on this one, we do have some health data from the some emergency data from the health tell us what is the cost, what's how many people there will be injury or fatal because of this. Next one we will showing is as I say that with decision tree is an initiative between what they're going to do, how many collision we're going to do, collision rate, collision, any collision for 12, collision for 10, or whatever the number may be affecting the selection of the top 50 or top 20 location. So we need to very clear to improvement to engage with the client involving in the decision tree development in the same time. So discussing more about telling what happening or something, what the impact, because this one, as I said before from the meet, sometimes we also use the weighting. But what type of weighting we using wheel 2 or 1 or some other one, they may be affecting the decision tree, the result, what happening or something. Next thing is I said before also, reason the committed improvement is important to us because the collision may be already improved, it's already no longer there because you change it recently. Or they change it, for example, we do the study for 2006 or 2030, maybe in 2017 they do some improvement. So we need to see that whether this improvement is actually reduce or we to minimize the collision, that type of collision that we need to know. Maybe not. Maybe we still need to do more work because of this one. So that's something we need to know about in advance. So that the city know about the carbonation, know about the reason and committed intersection. Committed is because, as I said before, also some of the money they already spent to commit the improvement in the future. So should we also consider more work to do, or we should consider what the improvement to consider the whether the collision will be reduced because this. Also, we need to see the decision criteria whether they fit the study goal. As I said before, is we say that before is there's a different type of the goals we can do it. Reason zero is one thing, so we need to consider some specifics. And as always say that what probably we're waiting more for the VRU collision or stability collision. So the second thing is about VRU, that will be pedestrian bicycle. Some government agent they really focus on the cyclist collision. They want to do that more focus on cyclist collision for this particular study. Or they have some select that say this we at least have five or 10 locations. We specify the high pedestrian cyclists, we're going to improve it. Sure, we also have other justify this that one because we probably the traffic volume is the area we need to do more about that one, and also to what other things we can consider to be fit and adjust the customer design criteria. Sure, this also we will come back to engage client earlier to see what happened. I think this is the last for our presentation. So if you got any question, I'm happy to answer, or even Jeffrey here also happy to answer together. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Very enlightening, a very informative presentation. Thank you to both of you. And I also just wanted to correct myself. Jeffrey Ho actually works for Jeffrey Ho Engineering Consultants and not ISL. So all three gentlemen are available to answer your questions. And I'm going to start with ones that we've got from our audience. The first question is, which type of roadways were included in the screening process, local and regional?
Maybe I answer first. Good question. What is the? Let me start to not sharing. Yep. Okay. Should I say soft share? Okay. Yeah. What kind of the roadway? Yes, that's the good point. That's also what we say at the very beginning. We need to lot the goals for the city or the government agents. Based on what we're doing most of the work in the Lower Mainland and the BC or Lower Mainland, some of one or urban area. So we based on our study, most of them we're doing is a whole city, every intersection in the city. Just like what we're doing now in one of the city, they have 1,000 intersections to do it. So, and some intersections is 2,000 intersections to do it. So we will identify that the whole intersection. Some of them may be, you say that some of them may be urban, some of them may be suburban in this city, but most of them we will need to consider both. And you say that I know that some others, the road safety level screening, they do some separate that we want to concentrate only on urban area to do the study or something like that. And to identify, or they did say about the rural area, they want to identify. A rural area, the challenge is data. We may not have a lot of data for the rural area, for the collision data or what happening or something like that. So this all depends on the city of what happening or something like that, or the government agent, what they say about this. Anything added from the Omid or Jeff?
No, I think you covered the answer. Yeah, it depends on who the client is and what their goals are, whether it's urban, whether they want to consider the intersections where they have a shared, it's shared with the neighboring municipalities. So it all depends on the scope of the project.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. The next question is, the study analysis is based on collision data from different sources, for instance, traffic, police, insurance. This person's wondering if any predictive analytics or potential collision locations were also used in the screening process. And once again, I'll leave it up to any one of the three of you.
Okay, maybe I'll also say about the road safety level screening. I think based on the same we say that before in 10 and the HSM, highway safety manual. The road safety level screening is more like based on historical data. So historical collision data to identify the collision, identify the ranking of this one. So we won't in the very beginning step, we're not including the potential of future forecasting the collision. However, when we go into more later stage, as I said before, after we're doing some more next step we're doing, we can also consider is for detailed analysis or even the traffic operating safety, we can consider the focus of future what happening whatever. But in the road safety level screening, we more focused is on the historical data, identify what is the collision rank, to identify collision ranking, what they have or something like that. Jeff, have you got anyone to add?
Well, first of all, it's based on the historical collision data. So, yeah, as we know, using history to predict the future is kind of precarious sometimes. So no, we focus on crashes that happened at locations where we can do something about, as well as from a resource point of view. That's probably the most effective way of addressing your existing safety issues. As to predicting what's going to happen, I wish we could do that, because I will be buying Lotto 649 tickets every week, and I wouldn't be here.
Yes, thank you.
Perfect,
And
okay.
I
Oh,
I will add one more thing is that typically after we do this like project, the next step as part of the next step was to do the cost benefit analysis. And when we are doing the economic evaluation or cost benefit analysis, one part is to find from the historical data how many collisions after implementation of a particular measure will be reduced. So based on the historical data, we identify the collision cost saving, and then rank the measures based on their benefit cost ratios.
that's very interesting. And I'm wondering if that, just a thought from myself, whether that could help you to build a case for doing that kind of work in the future. Like if you can actually say to the client, this is going to be potentially your savings, they might be able to sell it a little bit easier to get the funds to do that kind of project.
Mhm.
Okay, very good. I have another question. How have you modified your approach to network screening to be consistent with Vision Zero and Safe Systems approaches? And you mentioned earlier when you were looking at the challenges and the lessons learned that you need to adjust your criteria to fit study goals, and you had Vision Zero as one of the things under there. And I just wondered if you had experience so far changing your techniques to better fit with those goals.
Good question. Thanks a lot, Brenda. Talking about Vision Zero, yes, we do have some work working for the Vision Zero and the strategy, and then the government agents definitely say that, we have the Vision Zero vision, so we want you to include in your analysis or the level screening. Although level screening don't have much about this one, because if you're only taking out the custody collision and people, they not see all the picture or something like that. But we still doing some analysis. One of the study of series, although it's not direct when the Vision Zero, the level screening, but the corridor study we specify that only consider is fatal and injury collision. So we do working on this one and working on this type of the work or something like that. As I said before, we even we're not doing specified to consider the collision for the fatal or injury. We can afterwards, when we're doing the selection criteria, we can focus more on the fatal or injury collision, or the more weighting if they need it, to identify that will be more focused on the Vision Zero idea to identify what's a high collision location or something like that. So I think this is a good way to do it, rather than very beginning we stream out all the PDO collision, property damage only. That will be lost a lot of data to continue to next step or something like that. But that can be doing in terms of different scope from the study. That's also a why, because of the budget and the timeline. Sure, we can only do the fatal injury is much lesser to do the whole area system or the collision. That also depends on the timeline and the budget of the project.
Okay, very good. Anyone else want to contribute to that, or?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, and actually another question to build on the cost benefit analysis that you had mentioned, Ahmed. It says, do you also do cost effectiveness analysis, whereby you look at the cost of implementing various measures, i.e. traffic engineering, enforcement, education, in order to achieve a specific percentage reduction in collisions, fatalities, and injuries? So cost effectiveness analysis.
I think what we usually do is to provide a list of potential recommendation or mitigating measures, where we list different measures: short-term, medium-term, long-term. Sometimes if you implement one measure, you don't need to do the other one. Like if there is a long-term measure, you don't need to go the short-term or medium-term, or vice versa. So what we do is, for each measure that we think potentially could reduce the collision, we will do that cost benefit analysis through the collision reduction factors or other statistical reports that we can find the reduction or previous studies, then we provide a comparison between those measures to the client. So they could either go with a measure which costs them more but save them more money, or they can go with a short-term measure. So it depends on their funding, depends on their plan for future.
Depends on their goals, I guess, too. Very good. Okay, thank you. This is very timely, have you accounted for the impacts of the pandemic in your analysis? I see Borg laughing.
That's good part is as I said before, the data we already have some impact, because as I said before, we also have some emergency room data from the government agents, but because of pandemic, they say that the emergency room is too busy. They can't handle this provide the data. They don't have resources to provide that data for us. We understand about this one, but we still want to have some discussion with them, see what's going on. But the pandemic is they actually I would say that is both sides. That's true. The traffic volume may be lower because of the people less traveling, less using the road. The number of collision we hopefully become lower because exposure. But anyway, sometimes the traffic is faster because less traffic volume, less traffic to people driving that one that's smaller. But no matter what, we did some subsidy, we try to avoid using the data in the 2020 or 2021. But very beginning, we will still use that number, but it's based on the annual collision data, annual collision chart distribution. We identify, is it that really impact to them, to the area? Or some of the intersection, they will really impact, but some actually not. So we will see that what's going on in some of the one. That is a good question, but now it's because 2022, so we do really want the 2020 data. We hope it's still okay, but as you said before, we check the condition. But are we going to 2021? That's a good thing to identify that in the future. Yep.
It does really present a challenge when things have changed so much, and if you need a large number of years to get more, reliable statistics, like how do you blend those different years?
Yeah. That is possibly one of the challenges with our ability of this data we have or what happens. Okay.
Exactly. Very good. Okay, thank you. And I have another interesting question here. How different do you think your results would change if you adapted the crash prediction approach suggested in the Highway Safety Manual? And then she's got in brackets safety performance functions and crash modifications factors.
Yep. Good point. I think I answered first. For me and the Jeff have some, I think will be good. I think we say that before, this project for road safety level screening is mainly periodical. We based on the idea is ranking for the site to do some improvement or do some implementation, to helping the government agent to doing the implementation plan or using the funding or support they're going to do it in the future. So that's the main goal on this one. So we're usually also using the historical data to reflect what's happening or something like that. If you're asking me about do we consider the forecast of future, for the road safety level screening, we didn't use this because this is not part of the scope or not part of the idea to do the work or something like that. However, as I say that, what are the next steps? The next step we can do is detail the road safety analysis or even traffic operation and safety review. At that time, we may consider some forecasting or prediction model to do more work on this. I will say that that's a good idea. However, as a consultant, for the time and the budget, we want to focus something, we can do it and then finish it by what the government agent wanted in this moment. And we propose that all the discussion is on the historical data at this moment. But more detail, we will do this one. So that I expectation of this what happening somewhere. Anything from Jeff or Obi want to add?
Well, I can add, I have looked at some network screening studies using different kinds of methods, including the HSM collision prediction models. Yes, they do yield different rankings, but for the most part, you would expect the majority of, say, the top 40, top 50 are the same locations. Using one method, location A could be ranked number 5. The second method, it could be ranked at number 15. So what does it matter? As long as we are still catching the majority of the quote unquote bad locations. So that's my point of view.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. I have another question about near misses. It says, how do you take near misses into consideration? And this person has heard that in New Zealand, most severe collisions have occurred where there has been no previous collision before.
Okay, good point, good question.
I don't think it's a question.
Sorry, Jeff, you want to say this?
I don't think it's a question. It's more of a statement. No?
Yeah.
Well, I guess, do you use near misses data, I guess, in?
Well, it's been in use for a long time, and they're called traffic conflicts. And it's actually in the TAC in-service road safety review guide. In the old days, they used manual observers, and nowadays, we make use of technology, and there are commercial firms out there that will provide you with automated video analytics on these so-called near misses. And as to, severe collisions can happen anywhere, not just in New Zealand.
Yep. I want to add is, although we didn't directly briefing the nearly miss information, but we do have with the government agent at the very close, very beginning. So if they have some public inquiry about, this location is very bad. I also receive a lot of the Western feedback say that they have a lot of nearly miss for them. So the city will say this intersection, we really want to have a more detail analysis or something. So we will pay attention when we do this one. I would say that if they are nearly missed, that means the most likely they have some collision happen. Not with a high collision location. Another thing is site review. That's why we say the site review is important, because the road safety engineer coming out to check, to see that hopefully if they always have nearly miss on the site, we probably can see also nearly miss. So that is reflected what happened. Or even we don't see the nearly miss, but the road safety based on judgment, we can see that emergent that will be happen, collision will be happen. Or that I think that is already incorporated some of the idea for the nearly miss or something.
Oh,
Yep.
I don't know whether we should say hopefully finding near miss or
Well, I just want to add, that's why we do proactive things like road safety audits, because severe crashes could happen in random locations. So when you do audits, you make sure that you have a safe roadside. For high-speed roads, you have frangible poles. You do things that you could do to protect the drivers and the occupant of the vehicles, as well as other users of the road, from being severely injured. And that's really the goal of what we're trying to achieve. I just a bit baffled between the linkage between near misses and severe crashes and New Zealand. I couldn't put the three together. Sorry.
Perfect. Perfect. And that's a great note to end our webinar on. And I want to thank our three speakers today. Well, 2 speakers and 3 question answers. And it's been very enlightening. And thank you so much for your time. And there's a couple of people who didn't get their questions answered, but I will follow up afterwards and connect those people to the speakers. So thanks, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Great day.
Bye.
Bye.